And after, I'm gonna put a little timer here so I might not be 3 exact, but I'm gonna stay
So
on it.
so let's put the context back in. So like
Okay.
if Nicholas vanished from this world, move on to this wheel of life cycle, and he has like 3 minutes, a message of 3 minutes or wisdom of 3 minutes to share with the people to take away, what would that be?
We have been on this earth for give or take 200,000 years. And in terms of how we relate to one another, not much has changed. And we live under this premise as if things can't be okay. And there always has to be these ups and downs to life. And that's just something I don't believe and don't subscribe to. We're all human beings. We are all here trying to do the same thing, and that is to be. And a piece of information I would offer is that as there's so many different areas of what is the correct answer to us being here, I propose one that is not radical, it's not new, but it's not one that you hear too much about. And that is that we are consciousness. We are a product of the universe. And what human beings are, in my belief, is consciousness in itself, the universe, experiencing itself simultaneously through various perspectives. And that the the possibility of us one day all waking up to that enlightenment, as it's called in some sources, and understanding that the utopia lies within us. And to achieve that is to understand that it's nothing but loving one another, supporting one another. And anything outside of that is us operating from a state of survival, which in the world we live today, we are not in. In any form of survival that may appear on the world is nothing more than something we create. It's us. At the end of the day, what we have is each other. And we lose sight of the perspective that we sit here on a planet rotating a ball of gas, floating in the middle of nowheres, going nowheres. The scope and size of just even our galaxy is borderline inconceivable, let alone the universe. Yet through our ego, we walk on this planet as if I is everything and I is nothing. Everything is we. And the day that we can come to that realization in we and us, as opposed to I, that is a day that we will all live the life that we all dream of. That is the answer. And it lies in each one of us. And that is what I would leave you with.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. And I kept it within 3 minutes. Is awareness. That is the biggest strength I found. Is I just teach awareness. And awareness is seeing objectively and just seeing. And then from there, the answer is just it's just obvious. It presents itself when you are experiencing reality through a clear lens and a purity of just coming from literal love and compassion for one another. And you think outside of survival. I shouldn't say outside. Well, outside, yeah. And when you're operating from these higher areas, the answers are right there because there's no internal struggle. But you can't offer that access if you're coming from an egoic place because there's always a bias there. There's always a, yeah, but how do I lean it towards my way? And that's why we have so few people within this mindset because it takes a complete sacrifice of I. You need to be at a complete level of we. That's all.
Okay, so I have a question though. Coming out from there. Thank you. So like I absolutely love you said that like when we are sharing ourselves on a higher frequency of channel, higher frequency, the things that come out of us in our sharing, it's more um, natural, more resonating, and then people can be relatable to that message. Then how would you at the same time though, sometimes when we share these concepts, it became lecturing, it became like teaching
Hmm.
versus um, like how in our training in landmark we need to share our personal journey so that we can be more relate so people can be more relatable to us versus talking about it on a higher level. How would you say that like what is there a conflict between that, or is there about things that we need to balance? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
I do, and I used to think there was a conflict, and so I recently finished my presentation on my path to awareness, and I actually did it twice. A good friend of mine who I value so much gave me an opportunity to speak on his platform, and I went into it speaking at that high level. It was informational, and I took myself out of it. And what I found that you're not able to help people if you reach your hand out and they can't reach it. And so what I've discovered for myself is that by sharing and using our personal stories and by having a little I in the story, you create a relatability, you create a bridge, you create a way that someone can actually reach your hand
Mhm.
to be able to show them what else is available. And so in that presentation, I did it twice. The first time I did it, I wasn't, I saw the possibility for improvement. And when I say improvement, I mean improvement so that it connects more effectively, because that's the ultimate goal. It's not about what I know, it's about what I'm able to transfer so that others can receive it. Otherwise, what I know is useless. It means nothing. And it means nothing to me because I already know it. It means only what I can when I could help transfer to others so that it benefits them. So I look back, I was watching some other videos. I'm always involved in watching whether science or self-improvement videos or growth of that nature. And I was watching another presenter, and I really started watching how they were presenting and learning as I'm watching. And then I did another take. And this time I didn't worry about the time, and I didn't have an audience this time, so it was just me. And I said to myself, if it's really too long, I'll cut it up at the end, but let me just say what I need to say without any other considerations. And in that one I shared my story
Okay.
to relate to other people.
So can I like let's see if I can understand this from what you're sharing. So the intention matters, right? So
Yes.
when we share about ourselves, if the intention was uh, installing our personal bias in the conversation, it would not be effective in helping people. But if we are using our own experience and story with the intention of almost like reaching our olive branch. Is that what you guys call it? Olive branch or a lever? So that people can reach to that. People can use that to get relatable to the teaching behind it, even though it's the same personal experience, but the intention behind it, people can often sense what that is. And if the intention is to help and is to serve, it would be more effective in the in, information piece or the theory piece.
Yeah, so what I'm present to is there's two different types of teaching here, especially based on the question you asked me earlier. There's the teaching of mindset, consciousness, awareness, that one can use their self as an example, as a bridge to help people understand. Because if I just talk from a place where I am now, most people would not believe where I was, right? They wouldn't think that I had no relation to them and I don't understand them and I don't know what it's like. So that I become relatable. Now, when it comes to a conversation of how to improve upon a system, right? Then that becomes a conversation of we. That is where I becomes an issue, because now there's a bias to that. The question you asked me earlier, somebody comes back, you go back thousands of years, a hunter goes back into the woods, comes back with a piece of meat. How do you decide who gets how much meat in this tribe, right?
Yeah.
Well, that conversation then becomes about we. That conversation doesn't need to put an I into it, because putting I into that type of conversation now puts a tarnish on the effectiveness, on the purity of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about I. It's not about a mindset in a way. It's coming from a mindset, but the circumstance is about a we, is about a us.
Mm-hmm.
How do you divvy up that meat for the tribe? Now, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, or I'm going to stretch out a little bit more. So now tribe, again, when I say we and when I say us, at the highest of level, that is us as Homo sapiens. So that's us as 7.8 billion people, give or take. Yet we live in a world where most people can't, their view of we or of tribe really is, it can't get outside of such a very small circle, whether it's family, community. It's usually like the two right there. Most people stay within family. To get to community is like a feat all in itself. And so
Our number for a tribe is 150 people. The maximum. That's what he said.
well, that's about the maximum, like what our mind can actually uh handle relational wise, to actually like know and connect with that many people, which makes sense. Like that's okay. It's not that's not that's not like a chink in the armor, so to speak. You can still come from a place when you speak of we, when you speak of a tribe, as the tribe of earth, right? uh we have this type of group mentality, and you look at sci-fi series and movies, and we tend to come together when there's another threat, which shows our strength and unity. It's just it's unfortunate, especially in this day and age, with this development we have and this luxury that we have to explore the mind, not being in survival, that it still takes a threat to unite us. You look at what happened at 9/11, and all of a sudden New York City was very harmoniously bonded. All of a sudden there was a we. Oh, now there's a we, right? And anyone who knows New York City knows that there's not always a strong sense of we and us. Now all of a sudden a nation united because there was an outside threat. See, something more important than I was presented at an overwhelming level.
Because there's the threat that threat presented at that time, it's bigger than me able to protect myself or fight against it. So
Right.
this is when we came to a realization that, oh, we need each other.
Right. And then you look at a movie like Independence Day, which united the globe in the movie, right? Because there was a threat outside that was bigger than us united, because it wasn't about US and China and Europe. That didn't mean anything. It was about planet Earth versus whatever. I don't think they said what planet they came from, but like whatever this was that united us. and again showed us the strength in unity. Now, between movies and real life, we've seen over and over and over again the strength in unity. And it is so powerful. Sometimes I believe that we actually fear the very power that we're capable of being united, because we always tend to have to be united when we're fighting. There always has to be a
Yeah.
threat to be
Yes.
united. Imagine if we took that same power united and we invested it back into ourselves. It wasn't about a threat. It was about how can we make this home that we have the best it can be for all involved. So you can't do that with I. It cannot be done, and it will never be done. That is a promise. You can write. I can be the. You can write me down as the next Nostradamus. Dig up this video 1,000 years from now. It will not be done under I. It will only ever be accomplished in we.
Okay, so that comes up with another question because like in the consciousness practice world, we have this saying that, like for adults growth, or like pain is the launch path for personal growth or whatever growth, corporate growth. But like there's always a pain require to be there. And coming back to what you just shared, that we always need overwhelming or catastrophic uh, danger present to the human race for us to realize that we need to reunite or unite each other. Do you think there's like some correlation before that? Like, because it's a very nice concept to say that, like, why don't we just unite each other while the time is good? Like when there's nothing happen during peacetime, um, and like it doesn't, in my experience also, I agree with you that it doesn't happen very often. Just like the COVID happened, it's bigger than any of us by ourselves. So in New York, you see this tremendous amount of people watching out for each other, helping each other, and then now it became a global pandemic. So my wish is the globe would truly unite with each other, and help each other out. Like, in your experience, do you also see that there always like external pain required for
Yeah,
to hold?
unfortunately, yes. Even in my circumstance, it tends to take a pain point, and I believe that it doesn't have to. And I know it doesn't have to, because there's examples of people that come from very nurturing and loving families, and don't have traumas in their life, that exhibit the same realm of mindset that I've gotten to now. It's not that it wasn't that we don't have this mindset.
Mhm.
It's just that things get in the way, traumas develop. There's a cycle of generation after generation after generation after generation. These traumas are passed down,
Yeah.
both mentally and biologically. And we don't put value into ourselves the way we claim we do, right? We don't teach ourselves about ourselves. Part of that, in my belief, comes from capitalism, because it doesn't serve capitalism. So we don't put a value on it. It doesn't matter if you're stressed out, or if you're anxious, or if you're sad, or if you're depressed. No, what matters is if you get up, you go to work, you punch the clock, you do what you got to do, and you go home. And you're going to, because we're attached to money. So that's what you're going to do. Okay, so you're sad. Did you go to work today? Okay, great. Yeah, we'll feel better. I hope so. No. So we don't have a strong enough of a reason to want to do that, to actually teach ourselves about ourselves. And we lack of majority the people that could do that with the premise of us, and not a biasness of I, not a bias of which well, which way is the right way of us, instead of teaching the spectrum of what we know about us, whether it's in religion, whether it's in ontology, whether it's just out of learning the neuroscience and makeup that makes us do what we do and act the way we act, whether it's from a consciousness realm, right? These are all relevant. But we're too fixated on which one is the right one,
Yeah.
instead of just teaching that they're all us. They're all a form of expression of us understanding and figuring out ourselves. You don't need to teach one. You need to teach us about us.
Yeah.
Everyone's too worried about being the winner because we live in a win-lose world
And
instead of a win-win.
all these are just interpretation, actually, like not individual or collective of individual interpretation of how we are being. And
Right. And within all these interpretations, so my presentation, I use a couple circles, and to give more of a clarity to that, right? All those circles will use that term, our interpretations. However, when you overlay them together and you look for the commonalities, therein lies the truth to the interpretations when you focus on the interpretations as a whole.
wow.
Because somewhere's in the middle, we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Focus on that, and we'll find the very thing we seek.
Yeah.
But to do that, you have to let go of the decision of this deciding factor of the one right one, because the one right one lies within them all.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to let go of I and come to what are we saying, not what am I saying.
Yeah. Yeah. and and it goes back to like the mind-blowing concept that you just share about we don't fight. I want to go back a little bit since we're on the recording. So like I mean, it was just so profound. It's like it literally just blow my mind when we talk about the meat distribution in a tribe, where you said that if everybody, okay, can you share that? So I
Oh,
don't.
yeah. I'll,
So my original question was, you talk about sliding bread, and I'm talking about like coming up with meat. Like, so if somebody in the tribe came back with a piece of meat, how would you distribute that to say that it's fair? Like, if everybody were to get a piece of that piece of meat, what is fair?
yeah. Okay. So we'll go back to that. So you got a hunter, you got a tribe of X amount of people. Hunter goes out, brings back a deer, skins it, cuts it up, cooks it. And your question was, well, how do you fairly distribute this meat? Right. And my answer to that was, well, again, it becomes very easy. Where what does it take to sustain and nourish every person in the tribe? Right? That's an easy answer. When you say how much, well, again, a hunter is going to need a little bit more to nourish themselves versus somebody who's staying in might not need as much. If there's a baby in the tribe, it's not going to be an equal proportion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people will need more than others. However, looking at it as nourishment, sustainability, well, that's easy. Now, you divvy up all the pieces to sustain the tribe. And this is where the conflict comes in. So in this scenario, let's just say there's one piece left. Well, it's the same as if you're home in this modern age. Let's say you order a pizza. Well, most people, you can have two slices of pizza, some one or two, and you're sustained, you're nourished. So what happens after that? Man, pizza's looking really good. I can really go for another slice. Well, where does that come from? That doesn't come from sustainability. It comes from pleasure. It comes from gluttony. We're now eating for pleasure. So now you go back to the scenario with the tribe. There's one piece left. Five people are like, oh man, I could really go for another slice or another piece. Now what happens? Well, five people might fight for it. What are they fighting over? They're fighting over an abundance. They're fighting over excess. They're fighting for pleasure. Because that piece of
In
me,
the name of sustainability.
yeah, well, they're claiming. because that piece of me is going to trigger a chemical response that we get. And then now what we're really fighting over is a drug of pleasure that we get from this extra piece. See, and we live in a world now of more excess than ever. And yet we're not fulfilled. We have more anxiety now than ever, stress. There's a fascinating study that I believe is still ongoing on human happiness, which is remarkable. People are not happy, right? We're fighting over the pleasures of life, and we're forgetting what life really is. We're forgetting what nourishment and substance and what having enough is. Was that a good reiteration of my first one?
Even better, even more profound.
None of these are written down. This is all, it's not rehearsed.
Yeah, it's all communicated on a higher frequency, and so okay, so like if we connect, and this is why I also wanted to go back to that point you just made, because we talked about pain point and we talk about pleasure. And I mean, in our current living experience, that we like pain point actually breed out of unity, human unity, and the human desire of growth, or exerting that energy for development and growth. But when we're sitting at our leisure, happy, peaceful, at peace, we tend to stay stagnant, and we tend to divide each other up, to a point that it become painful again, and we realize that, oh, wait a second, we need to unite again. Do you see that this is a this is like a cycle, like the stock market, when it goes up and up and up, it needs some sort of correction, and then
Yeah.
go up again. So it's not linear. It's linear in the bigger graph, but it's not linear if you zoom in. Like last time when we talked a little bit about that, but on the consciousness level, that if, like you told me that if I only zoom in a certain point, and when I zoom into the dip, I'm always going to be in the dip. But if I zoom out in the whole lifespan, I'm actually seeing progress going up. So like I mean, like my question is, do you see this as a progress as well, or we're actually in a cycle, like correction, happy, correction, happy?
Yeah, I got what you're saying. And let me restate it just to make sure that we are on the same page.
Yeah.
Are you asking me that from a zooming out at human beings as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
long term, over thousands of years, do I see our progression as human beings like the stock market, where we have, some up and down, some fights, and we come back, but overall, are we steadily rising in our progress? Is that how you're asking me?
Yes. Or are
Okay.
we actually moving into a circle?
Yeah.
Like a
I
spiral. Maybe a spiral would be nicer to describe this progress, instead of this or this.
Well, it could. So I'm going to give you a pretty cool fun fact on that. If you take the long-term trajectory of our actual galaxy and our planet, right, moving through space, it actually is a spiral. So it's really cool, actually, how we're actually moving. See, our everything is moving, right? So the galaxy in itself is not in place, right? It's moving through. So as we're rotating around the sun and everything, we're part of one of the arms of the Milky Way that's moving through space. So it creates a spiral as we're actually moving through. So just a little fun fact.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then to come back to answer your question, so I I believe that technology is progressing fantastically. The human condition, however, even though our intellect is progressing, hence the byproduct of technology, I don't see much of our being progressing and access to consciousness and seeing an overall heightened operation of awareness in majority progressing. I could be wrong because it's very difficult to really get a bigger view on the world. There's so many sources of information, yet all those sources are limited in themselves. There's so many things that are happening and that have happened in our planet that many of us are unaware of. It's impossible to keep track of everything. I mean, there's abandoned cities in our own country alone that most that we're not even aware of. Like there's things that happen that we see such a sliver of what is actually going on. It's too much information to absorb. So from what's being projected of the world, it doesn't seem like there's a progress of our being, of our awareness. It doesn't seem that way. However, that could not be the case given the extreme limitation that any one of us have to actually see it all. Like it's just an overwhelming amount of information that is impossible to digest, you know. And I'll give you another fun fact to relate that. You take a black hole, for example, and some, you know, you follow science, one source will say that, and by source, a source of, you know, human beings aspect to understand reality as we know it.
Like a school of
So,
thought.
yeah, there you go. One school of thought would say that everything is information, right? And energy information. So a black hole, which is the one of the strongest, if not the strongest force of anything that there is, that has a gravity pull that is off the charts. Like it can't even be measured at the center of it, right? It breaks down math as we know it. Even a black hole can only consume so much energy or information at one time. They actually like spit up like babies, right? And then you get these blasts of gamma ray bursts that comes out of them, right? They can only intake so much. So I say that because something as powerful as that we can't even conceive of in our minds. We can see it mathematically, but we can't really get the gravity, no pun intended, or maybe, of it. So, you know, as human beings, again, information, you can only intake so much. There is just a limit for anything to just intake so much. So in so I'll clear up my answer again in case I got lost in my example. Is I believe technology is advancing. I believe that human beings are trapped in a cycle.
Wow, that's interesting. That it's very interesting because you actually put these two separately. Because I mean, from my in my view, is that human created technology, like, or we discover technology. Maybe the technology is always there, but like as human being, we are discovering and exploring technology to make them come service. But yeah, like anyways, I see them as one unit, but you split them into two.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think we are trapped, or we are actually regressing or lost to, like, like maybe, um do you think it's there's a correlation? The higher the technology is, the more advanced the technology is, the more stagnant or regress we we as human being will be. Like our conversation back in a little bit ago about, like in some of the origin society when uh, household produce one or two products and they go to the market and they trade with each other, and we are here to live, to participate in life, to contribute to each other's life. And then we come to, like, manufacture, that manufacture create abundance of material, but that also imbalance the human society, exchange energy, because now there's a disconnect of human exchanging. Do you Are you saying that 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 is also like what you just said?
Uh, it so what I'm hearing is, would I stick to the same divide between technology and human beings in that era as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, do you think in order for us human beings to be advancing or moving forward, we need to slow down on our technology or even make the technology dumber? Um,
No,
okay.
no. I think for us to advance, if we want to call it that, we need to step out of survival mode and wake up.
How is that like on the court?
How's that on the court? We need to start teaching it. We need to start teaching ourselves about ourselves. We need to start healing traumas in our lives and create societies where we have more children being born into healthy environments versus unhealthy. And to do that, we need to start healing ourselves. And to heal ourselves is healing an entire family line so that we can discontinue the transfer of trauma to the next generation. And then we stop the cycle.
How do you heal the family line? Well, we also talked about this a little bit earlier, how I was even having difficulty digging deep inside myself. So how would you yeah, how to heal a family line?
Yeah. So by supporting one another. So you just mentioned, we were talking earlier before the recording started, and
Yeah.
you were having trouble going into yourself, right?
Yeah, like digging
Okay.
deep, what is the root
Yeah.
of
No,
all
that's
my problems? I hope procrastination is it, but it's not.
yeah. Well, here's the other part of it that you may not be acknowledging yourself for. Yes, you are having trouble, and you are also talking to somebody, getting support, right? You are open to wanting that cleared up. You were open to looking. You're open to a possibility without that there. It's not about, hey, we're going to fix ourselves. Being open to support one another and being open to the possibility of life without these negative wounds and traumas and hindrances, being open to it because the resources are everywhere. So you know that. It's something that you and I have been involved in. It's something that I do for other people personally now. It's being open. Same thing with financial. A lot of people fail financially. We're not taught enough about it, and we're not open to support about it because what? It was a rule of thumb. You go back again a generation or two. You don't talk about money. Okay. You don't talk about politics. Okay. How'd that work out? How does it work out with financially? Not well. How's it working out with politics? Well, country was pretty divided. And don't talk about religion. Well, there's a whole world history on that. It's not complicated.
So the solution, the first step, or maybe not the first step of the process, is to be open and the willingness to share. Um,
Yes. The
yeah,
willingness to be wrong.
yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting because I discovered it in my own journey that the very thing that we are running away from or quiet down. It's the thing that runs our life in the background.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow. So the first step is to share, to open the book or open the box.
Yeah, sharing's very powerful. There's a difference though between sharing and making a righteous statement as a fact.
Ooh, can you elaborate that difference a little?
Yeah, so sharing is just it's an expression of what is, what has been, uh, versus making it as a statement, as an expression of fact, telling somebody what is, as if it's a unanimous truth.
Can we have an example for that? Or I can give an example if you wanted me to, if you want to prompt me onto that.
Yeah, I would actually defer to you because, as we just said, like none of this is scripted, and this is all kind of developing. So as I was saying that, I was internally trying to think of an example at the same time. But I'll offer it to you and then possibly follow up.
Okay, so like, okay, we'll go back to the sharing. So for like the earlier conversation, the unrecorded one, is that like I have a belief that in order for me to have any financial gain, I have to work hard. Like I have to make sacrifice. I have to make compromise um, for doing the things that I don't enjoy doing, so that I can get rewarded, so that I can get the financial resource and do the things that I enjoy doing, whether it's community building, whether it's in traveling. But first, I have to do the things that I don't enjoy. It might be a job, um,
Yep.
and
So
and and would the making a assertive statement be like something my parents would tell me that, well, you gotta um, find a job that will sustain you, like I mean, in order to get the financial gain, Ying, you have to do things that you don't like.
yes, that's a perfect example. So the first, what you just did is you shared, and then a statement asserting it as truth would be telling the world you have to do something you don't like to make money, versus you're just sharing about yourself, right? Which opens up other possibilities that, well, it's not true that you have to do something you don't like to make money. But that is can be an outcome. However, there's a possibility they can do something you love and make money, right? And so your parents asserted that as a truth of what you have to do, instead of sharing it as a possibility, or sharing it because ultimately it probably came from their experience, right? It came from their eye.
Yeah.
This is what I did and what I learned about life. So this is what you have to do because that's the way it works for me.
Wow. So it's kind of dangerous. It sounded like to exert a personal reality, a personal experience as the truth onto someone else, whether it's just this simple idea of doing the things that you don't want to do in order to gain money, but like it can happen in any other area, whether it's consciousness
Oh,
or
everywhere. It's very dangerous. That's why it's the society we have today. We are nothing but the children of our descendants and so on and so forth. And we keep doing this generation after generation. And it's why one of the biggest failures we have on this planet is an agreement on how to live, because everyone has their own statement of truth
yeah.
on how to live. There is no one way on how to live, yet everyone has a way that they teach their next of kin, which is the truth for them. And we develop these closed minds that, you know, a fortunate few can break out of and then get shocked by what the world really is.
Wow.
And by shock, I don't use that in a negative context. It's a beautiful thing. There's a shock value though to waking up to it. You know, I express this so much, such a analogy that I love using, and I think does a great job of illustrating, is it relates a lot to seeing color. People are walking around more or less unconscious as if a blind person who has never seen color. And once you start to, they have these glasses now for people that are colorblind, which are awesome. And I love watching the videos. It just touches my heart. You see these people put on their glasses and they see color for the first time. That's what I mean by shock value. It's a beautiful thing. It's shocking to see the world on what it really, the colors that are there for someone who's never seen it. Well, in consciousness, it's a similar shock value to wake up and see in a sense that has never yet been developed. It's a beautiful thing, but it's shocking. And once you see color, you can never unsee it. However, if you've never saw color, it's impossible to imagine it. You take someone who was born blind, there is nothing you can do to describe the color blue. You can relate it to things that you know because you've seen, but you can never truly describe the color. And it's a lot like awareness. I can make my best effort to try to describe it, but where the power comes in is shedding a light on a path to guide someone to get there, so they have the view, so they can see it for themselves, because it's an experience.
Oof. That, yeah, that's the importance of coaching. Yeah. So yeah, being a coach is not to, like what you did for me, not to tell me what is the right thing to do, is to shed a light to my,
Right,
to make me be aware of the stuff, the spot that I might not be seeing.
right. My job is not to tell anyone how to live. It's merely to illuminate all that's there so you can truly see what there is there to choose from.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that for me.
It was truly my pleasure. It truly was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, are we good with the recording?
Yeah, no, that was great. I